Because I was married to him, you know,
No,
I made all these
talked about
choices
that.
that I made when I was married to him, so super grateful for it all.
The room was silent. Not the kind of silence that feels peaceful. No, this was heavy, suffocating silence. Every seat in the courtroom was filled. Reporters, bloggers, YouTubers, even curious fans of Sister Wives had lined up outside before sunrise, hoping for a glimpse of the drama that had shaken the Brown family to its very core. The judge entered. Everyone rose. And in that tense moment, one truth became clear: the Brown family, the family once shown on national television as a symbol of love, unity, and faith, was now standing in court, exposed. This was no longer reality TV. This was reality. Fire hook for the audience. Imagine a man who once called himself the loving father of 18 children. Imagine him sitting in court, his reputation crumbling, while the wives who once defended him now prepare to speak against him. This was Kody Brown's nightmare. And it was happening in broad daylight. The camera flashed as Kody adjusted his tie. The sound of camera shutters echoed through the room. He hated it, the flash, the whispers, the eyes staring at him like he was some fallen king. To his right sat Robyn, his favorite wife, her face pale and stiff, eyes full of fear. She clutched his hand, as if holding on to the last piece of power they once had. Across the courtroom sat Christine, Janelle, and Mary. No longer united under one man. No longer silent. Their faces told a different story now: strength, pain, and something else Kody never thought he'd see. Defiance. The audience could feel it. The audience in court leaned forward, hungry for every detail. They weren't just here for gossip. They were here for justice. Because for years, fans had watched the cracks in the Brown family. For years, they saw favoritism, manipulation, and betrayal play out on TV. But now? Now the truth would finally be spoken, not in confessionals, not in interviews, but in a court of law. Kody's uneasy confidence. Kody leaned back in his chair, trying to look calm. He smirked once, the same way he used to when cameras followed him around Flagstaff. But deep down, he was shaken. Because this wasn't TLC. This wasn't his living room where he could control the narrative. Here, every lie could be cross-examined. Every secret could be dragged out into the light. The wives' determination. Christine's jaw was tight. She had fought too hard to be free, and now she was here to tell her story with no fear. Janelle had stacks of documents, ready to expose financial secrets. Mary sat quietly, but her silence was louder than words. Years of being ignored had finally brought her here, to the one place where Kody could no longer dismiss her. And Robyn? Robyn was trembling. Not just for herself, but for the crumbling empire she and Kody had built together. She knew the world had turned on her. And now, even the courtroom felt hostile. The judge spoke today. We will hear testimony regarding financial misconduct, emotional neglect, and the alleged manipulation within the Brown Family Corporation. Every word landed like a bomb. The crowd shifted. Pens scribbled furiously. Kody swallowed hard. Because those words meant one thing: his secrets were about to be exposed. Suspense built up outside the courthouse. Protesters held signs. Justice for the Brown kids. No more lies. TLC, stop protecting Kody. The air outside was buzzing. News anchors went live, saying, "This is one of the most shocking reality TV scandals in history." The Brown family, once celebrated as pioneers of plural marriage, now face accusations of fraud, emotional abuse, and betrayal. What will be revealed inside this courtroom could change everything. Why this matters: this wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about contracts with TLC. It was about broken promises, children left behind, and the wives who had finally found their voices. For years, viewers asked, why did Kody favor Robyn? Why were the other wives always struggling while Kody poured everything into one household? Why did the children cry on camera, begging for his attention, while he ignored them? Now, those questions would finally be answered. Robyn's tears. Robyn wiped her face, already crying before the first witness was even called. She whispered to Kody, "What if they believe them?" Kody squeezed her hand. "They won't. They never could." But his voice cracked. And Robyn heard it. For the first time, she knew he was afraid. Christine takes the stand, cliffhanger for part 2, the judge looked down at his notes. "Kody Brown, please take the stand." Gasps filled the room. Kody's eyes widened. Robyn froze. Christine stood up slowly, her head high, her voice steady. This was the moment she had waited for. And as she walked past Kody, she didn't even look at him. Not once. Because Christine was no longer afraid of the man who once controlled her life. She was ready to expose him. The camera fades in, slow music builds. The voice of the narrator cuts through the silence. Inside the courtroom, tensions were running higher than ever before. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, as every secret that Kody Brown had worked so hard to bury was being pulled out into the light. His face, once full of confidence and control, was now pale, eyes darting, desperate to find an escape. But there was no escape this time. For years, the Brown family's reality was carefully scripted for the cameras, painting a picture of love, unity, and faith. But behind those doors, behind those staged smiles, lived betrayal, manipulation, and financial secrets too dark to ignore. And now, in front of judges, lawyers, and even his own family, Kody was cornered. Robyn sat just a few feet away, her composure shattering. Tears streaming down her face, not the carefully staged ones fans had seen before, but raw, panicked sobs. Because this was no longer about image. This was about survival. Documents were read aloud. Bank records, property transfers, contracts with hidden clauses, each one a dagger aimed straight at the illusion the Browns had built. The court heard of how funds were shifted, how favoritism controlled financial security, and how other wives were left vulnerable, unprotected, powerless, and discarded. Gasps filled the room. Even the most loyal supporters couldn't deny the evidence laid bare. And then came the moment that shook everyone. A witness stepped forward, not a stranger, not an outsider, but someone from within the family. Their voice cracked as they revealed how promises were broken, how loyalty was betrayed, and how Robyn and Kody's choices destroyed trust forever. The courtroom froze. Kody's jaw clenched, his hand gripping the table so tightly his knuckles turned white. Robyn's sobs echoed, but no one reached for her hand. Because in that moment, it became painfully clear, this wasn't just a court case. This was the unraveling of the sister wives' empire. A collapse in real time. A truth too big to hide any longer. The music swells, the narrator's voice lowers, pulling viewers deeper, and yet, this was only the beginning. What came next would tear open wounds so deep, the Brown family would never recover. The courtroom sat in a heavy silence. Every eye was fixed on Kody Brown, but it wasn't admiration, it was disbelief. The man who once boasted of being the proud leader of a united plural family was now cornered, questioned, and cracking under the weight of his own secrets. For years, he painted himself as the victim of ungrateful wives, a man burdened by the choices of others. But in that courtroom, stripped of cameras and excuses, the truth was no longer his to spin. Robyn, sitting just a few feet away, trembled. Her face was pale, her hands clutching tissues that seemed endless, as if every sob was rehearsed yet uncontrolled. She wasn't the confident woman viewers once saw. This was a different Robyn, broken, exposed, and desperate to hold on to the last strands of the empire she and Kody had built on manipulation. The documents laid out before the judge were damning. Years of financial transfers, hidden assets, and secret arrangements, all leading back to one reality: Kody and Robyn had been protecting themselves at the expense of everyone else. Christine's name appeared again and again. So did Janelle's. Even Mary's trust had been violated. Each woman, once loyal to the vision of family unity, had unknowingly been cut out of the financial security they were promised. The judge's voice sliced through the tension. "Mr. Brown, do you deny that you transferred the Coyote Pass property solely into your and Mrs. Brown's control?" Kody shifted uncomfortably. His jaw tightened, his hands clenched. I was advised it was the best way to manage things. It wasn't about betrayal. It was about keeping things simple. But the courtroom wasn't buying it. Neither were the wives, who sat in grim silence, their faces unreadable yet heavy with emotion. Janelle lowered her head, fighting tears that burned with both anger and grief. Christine sat upright, her strength radiating, as if this was the moment she had waited for, the moment truth would finally be louder than Kody's lies. Mary, quiet as always, kept her eyes fixed on the judge, but inside she felt the weight of years wasted, loyalty misplaced, and love unreturned. And then came the breaking point. Robyn's sobs erupted louder. She leaned toward the microphone, her voice shaky yet piercing. "You don't understand. We didn't do this to hurt anyone. We just wanted a future. We wanted to protect what little we had left after everyone abandoned us." The room shifted. Gasps echoed. "Abandoned us?" Christine's jaw clenched. Janelle shook her head in disbelief. Even Mary's usually guarded expression cracked into one of raw hurt. Because the truth was undeniable, it wasn't they who abandoned Kody and Robyn. It was Kody and Robyn who abandoned everyone else. The courtroom became more than a legal battleground, it became the stage for years of betrayal to finally surface. Kody's mask was slipping. His once booming voice, the one that commanded wives and children, now trembled as he tried to justify his actions. Robyn's tears no longer looked like compassion but strategy, her words circling blame back onto the very women who had carried the family for decades. But here, in front of the law, manipulation held no power. Christine leaned forward slightly, her eyes fixed on Kody. Not a word left her lips, but her presence said everything. "We see you. The world sees you. And there's no hiding now." For years, the sister wives' story had been sold as one of faith, unity, and resilience. But in this moment, the illusion shattered completely. What remained was a family gutted by greed, favoritism, and betrayal, a truth that no TLC editing could ever soften. And as the gavel struck, signaling the end of the day's hearing, one thing was clear: Kody and Robyn's empire of secrets was collapsing, brick by brick, in full view of those they had wronged. This wasn't just a courtroom fight. This was the reckoning of Kody Brown. The scene opens with the heavy silence of the courtroom. The narrator's voice returns, calm but sharp, cutting through the tension. Outside, fans still argued about who was right and who was wrong. But inside this courtroom, there was no more hiding. No more reality TV editing. No more staged smiles. This was raw. This was real. Kody sat stiff, his eyes fixed on the polished wood of the judge's bench. He was trying, desperately, to look composed. But the truth was written across his face, sweat glistening at his temples, his jaw tight, his hands restless. And then, the judge spoke again. Another document was entered into evidence. Another piece of the puzzle. And the puzzle, once complete, showed only one thing: betrayal. The judge's words: "The court has reviewed the 2019 refinancing documents," the judge said, her voice steady, but weighted with finality. "The collateral listed is the entire Coyote Pass property. Yet the signatories are only Kody Brown and Robyn Brown. The other wives, Christine, Janelle, and Mary, are nowhere on this deed of trust." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The words echoed like thunder in the ears of the Brown family. Christine leaned forward, her face pale but resolute. For years, she had warned the others. For years, she had felt something wasn't right. Now, the evidence was undeniable. Janelle sat frozen. Betrayal wasn't new to her, she had endured it many times, but seeing it laid out in black and white documents was like being stabbed all over again. And Mary, her silence was deafening. Her eyes lowered, her lips pressed tight. She had sacrificed the most, held on the longest, only to discover that her loyalty had been used against her. The family's cracks widened as the evidence piled up. Kody finally broke his silence. He leaned toward his attorney, whispering frantically, trying to spin the narrative. But no spin could undo what was already on record. Robyn's tears flowed harder now. She reached for Kody's hand, but he pulled it back, too preoccupied with saving himself. That gesture, the rejection of the very woman he had always protected, did not go unnoticed. And for the first time, perhaps ever, Robyn realized she was not untouchable. From the gallery, the older Brown children shifted uncomfortably. Logan's fists clenched against his knees. Maddie shook her head, whispering to her husband, "I knew it. I knew this was coming." Gabriel and Gwendolyn sat in silence, eyes fixed on their father, on the man who once claimed to love them all equally, but whose actions told another story. The family's fractures were no longer hidden behind closed doors. They were on full display for the world to see. The witness testimony, and then, just when it seemed nothing more could be said, a witness was called. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a distant acquaintance. It was someone from within the family. Gasps filled the courtroom as the name was read. This wasn't just testimony, it was betrayal from the inside. The witness walked to the stand slowly, nervously, but with a fire in their eyes. They raised their right hand, swore to tell the truth, and then began to speak. "For years," they said, their voice trembling but strong, "we were told this was about family. About faith. About building something bigger than ourselves. But the reality was very different. Decisions were made behind closed doors. Money was shifted without consent. Promises were broken. Every word landed like a hammer." Kody shifted uncomfortably, his face red with anger. Robyn looked down, unable to meet the eyes of anyone in the room. The truth was no longer a secret. It was spoken. Recorded. Entered into history. The shattering moment, the courtroom felt like it had stopped breathing. Every eye was fixed on Kody. Every soul could see it. The empire he had built on control, favoritism, and secrecy was crumbling. For the first time, even Kody seemed to realize it. His shoulders slumped. His eyes closed. He exhaled slowly, almost like a man watching his own downfall in real time. And yet, this was only one day of testimony. Only one layer of the truth. What would come next would shatter the Brown family in ways they could never recover from. The music swells. The narrator lowers their voice, leaving the audience hanging. Because if the courtroom was where the truth was revealed, then what happened outside, in the days that followed, would be where the family finally collapsed. The air inside the courtroom was suffocating. Every breath carried the weight of years of betrayal, manipulation, and lies. Robyn's tears weren't just falling, they were spilling across the room like a desperate attempt to wash away the years of secrets she thought would never come to light. But the truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface. One by one, the documents laid bare.
Super grateful for it all. I never wanted to just be married to a man. I always wanted sister wives.
Everything Kody and Robyn fought so hard to hide. Property transfers. Shady refinancing deals. Signatures where none of the other wives' names appeared. Each page was like a dagger, and every dagger pointed back to the very people who swore they were building a family together. Christine sat frozen, her hands trembling but her eyes unflinching. She wasn't shocked, no, not anymore. She had long suspected the betrayal. But seeing it confirmed, in black and white, was still like reopening an old wound that never healed. Janelle's jaw tightened, her lips pressed together so hard they nearly disappeared. She whispered under her breath, but everyone near her could hear it, so all those years, all those sacrifices, were for this? For them to strip us of everything? Mary, she just sat in silence. Silent, but not weak. Silent, but her silence carried more power than any scream ever could. For years, she was painted as the loyal one, the one who endured quietly, who stayed even when staying meant breaking. But in that courtroom, her silence became the loudest statement of all. She was done carrying the burden of Kody's betrayal. And Kody? He sat restless, his hands fidgeting, his eyes darting back and forth as if searching for a lifeline that simply wasn't there anymore. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "This is all being twisted, you don't understand what we were trying to do," but the judge didn't flinch. The papers spoke louder than his excuses. Then came the moment no one expected. A voice, strong, clear, and trembling with both fury and heartbreak, broke through the tension. It was Logan, Janelle's oldest. He had stood by quietly, respecting the process, but as he watched his mother's sacrifices reduced to nothing more than collateral, he couldn't hold it in any longer. "You've been a father in name only," Logan said, his voice shaking. "You chose her. You chose money. You chose control. And in that choice, you lost us. All of us." The room fell into silence. Even Robyn stopped her sobs for a moment, realizing this wasn't just about property or legal contracts. This was about love betrayed. About children abandoned. About promises broken. Kody leaned back in his chair, his face pale, almost defeated. For the first time, he wasn't the man in control. He wasn't the patriarch calling the shots. He was simply exposed. Robyn tried to speak, tried to defend him, but her words collapsed under the weight of the truth. No explanation, no carefully crafted narrative, could cover the raw reality that had just been spoken into existence. And in that silence, one thing became clear: the family wasn't broken in that courtroom, it had been broken years ago. The courtroom only revealed the rubble they'd all been living under. This was no longer about sister wives. This was about survival. And for Kody and Robyn, survival suddenly looked very uncertain. The courtroom was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence that comes after a bomb has gone off. The kind of silence where everyone is still frozen, their minds struggling to process what they've just witnessed. Robyn sat at the front, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her entire body trembling. She wasn't crying out of guilt, she was crying out of exposure. For years she had mastered the art of manipulation, hiding behind tears and victimhood. But today, the mask had slipped. And once it slipped, it shattered. Kody, red-faced and twitching with anger, looked as if the floor had been ripped from beneath him. His golden empire, the control he thought he had over his wives and his children, was crumbling in front of strangers, cameras, and most painfully, his own family. Christine, arms folded tight, leaned over to Janelle and whispered, "This is what we've been saying for years. Now the whole world can finally see it." Janelle didn't nod. She didn't need to. The truth was heavy between them, undeniable, burning like fire. Mary sat further down the row, staring at Robyn with a kind of stunned disbelief. She had defended her for so long, ignored the whispers, silenced her own doubts, pushed down her instincts. But here, under the fluorescent lights of the courthouse, she saw clearly. Robyn hadn't been a sister wife. She had been a thief, a saboteur, an enemy within the walls of their family. The judge cleared his throat, shuffling papers. "This hearing is adjourned. We will reconvene after further review of the financial evidence." The gavel struck. It echoed like thunder. And just like that, it was over. But it wasn't really over. For the Brown family, it was only beginning. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed the steps like vultures circling prey. Microphones, cameras, questions flying. "Robyn, do you deny the accusations? Kody, did you knowingly sign false documents? Christine, were you silenced by TLC about the finances?" Robyn shielded her face, clinging to Kody's arm like a drowning woman clutching driftwood. But Kody's body language told another story: he wasn't protecting her. He was barely holding himself together, shaking with fury and humiliation. Christine stood tall, her voice calm but firm. "I think people are finally starting to understand what we lived through. The lies, the favoritism, the secrecy, it destroyed our family. And now? It's all in the open. Janelle added, this isn't about revenge. This is about the truth. And the truth always comes out. The crowd roared with questions, but Christine and Janelle didn't stop. For the first time, they weren't hiding behind polite smiles or TLC contracts. They were free. And the world was listening. Robyn's breakdown that night, in the mansion she had insisted was for the family, Robyn collapsed on the floor. Her sobs echoed through the halls. They hate me, Kody. They all hate me. Christine is poisoning everyone against me, Janelle is lying, and Mary won't even look at me anymore. I can't do this, I can't. Kody paced like a caged animal, running his hands through his tangled hair. His voice rose like a storm, this is your fault, Robyn. You told me this was safe. You told me we had everything under control. Now look at us, look at me. I'm ruined. Robyn wailed louder, clutching her chest, I did it for us. For our children. Don't you see? They would have taken everything if I didn't, but Kody cut her off, slamming his fist into the wall. The crack echoed through the empty house. No, Robyn. They didn't ruin us. You did. Mary's awakening. Meanwhile, Mary sat alone in her small rented house, staring at old photographs. Photos of a time when she believed in family, in unity, in sacrifice. A time when she believed Kody's love was something real. Her phone buzzed. It was Christine. Hey, Christine said softly. I wanted to check on you. Today was a lot. Mary's throat tightened. I don't know who I've been all these years, Christine. I defended her. I defended both of them. I thought if I just stayed loyal, if I just kept my head down, maybe I'd matter. But today, I realized I was nothing more than a pawn in their game. There was silence for a moment. Then Christine replied, You're not a pawn anymore, Mary. You're free. You just have to decide what to do with that freedom. For the first time in years, Mary let herself cry. But these tears weren't for Robyn. They weren't even for Kody. They were for herself, tears of grief, but also of awakening. The children speak. The fallout hit the kids just as hard. Dayton retreated into silence, his shoulders heavy with shame. He had always defended his mother, always believed in her version of events. But now, he wasn't sure what was real. Aurora broke down during a late-night phone call to a friend. They're all saying she lied, that she stole. I don't know what to believe anymore. But what if they're right? What if Mom really did all this? Brianna screamed at Kody one night, You promised us. You said we were safe, you said no one could touch us. Why did you lie? The illusion of a united family was shattered. Robyn's children, once her fiercest defenders, were beginning to see the cracks. The world reacts within 24 hours, the internet exploded. Headlines screamed, Sister Wives Scandal, Robyn accused of secret financial manipulation. Kody Brown's kingdom crumbles in court. Christine and Janelle finally speak out, the truth always comes out. Fans on social media were relentless. Hashtags like #Justice for Janelle, #Team Christine, and #exposing Robyn trended worldwide. YouTubers dissected every frame of courtroom footage. Reddit threads grew by the thousands. TikToks replayed Robyn's crocodile tears, overlaid with captions like When the Mask Slips. And TLC? The network scrambled to control the damage. But even they couldn't silence what was already public.